Good morning. I'd like to call the meeting to order at 9:30 and begin the meeting with the land acknowledgement that the municipality of Jasper respectfully acknowledges that the municipality of Jasper is on Treaty 6 and 8 territories, as well as the Jasper House Métis District. This land is the traditional territory, meeting ground, gathering place, traveling route, and home for the Dinéza, Assiniboine Winawak, Assiniboine Neha, Nehewak, Anishinaabe, Secwepemc, Stoney Nakoda, Mountain Métis, and Métis. I'm wondering now if there's any additions to the agenda. Seeing none, is there a councillor who would be willing to make the motion to accept the motion? Thank you. The agenda as circulated. Is there any, all in favor? Is there any business arising from the minutes of the January 28th Committee of the Whole meeting? Seeing none, we go to delegations. Seeing none, we move on to correspondence. Director Nadon, nothing for us today?
Nope, nothing additional than what's on the agenda. Thank you.
Okay, then we move on to 7.1, development of recovery strategic priorities. And Director Fark, are you going to speak to that?
Yes, I will be doing my best CAO given impression this morning. So thank you, Deputy Mayor and members of council. So the recommendation before you this morning is that the committee direct administration to seek feedback on the draft recovery strategic priorities from the Recovery Advisory Committee and return to a future committee of the whole meeting. So as you are aware, on September 10th, 2024, council approved the terms of reference for the Recovery Advisory Committee. The RAC was established under the Joint Recovery Coordination Center to provide community-based advice and guidance on Jasper recovery and rebuilding efforts. The committee's mandate includes offering feedback on housing development, economic stabilization, infrastructure restoration, environmental recovery, and community well-being. The RAC consists of representatives from Municipal Council, Parks Canada, local businesses, economic development organizations, and the general public. On January 28, 2025, Council approved the addition of wildfire recovery as a focus area within the 2022 to 2026 strategic priorities. To develop the draft wildfire recovery strategic priorities, administration reviewed a range of local guidance documents and government recovery frameworks to ensure a comprehensive and evidence-based approach. Local reports provided insight into housing shortages, workforce challenges, economic recovery, climate resilience, and infrastructure needs. While broader government frameworks, including the Jasper National Park Management Plan and Alberta Underground Tourism Sector Strategy. The draft wildfire recovery strategic priorities are intended to be complementary to Council's existing priorities and are designed to be comprehensive, adaptable, and community-driven, ensuring that Jasper's recovery efforts address both immediate needs and long-term sustainability. They emphasize housing development, recognizing the urgent need for workforce and permanent housing, while also prioritizing economic recovery by leveraging partnership to restore Jasper's tourism sector and local businesses. I won't actually go through the rest of the report. I think it's fairly straightforward. We will spend a few minutes, though, to actually go through what the proposed strategic priorities are. So the first one, work with all parties to deliver interim seasonal staff and rebuild workforce housing in ways that address the immediate needs while not sacrificing our future. The second is collaborate with industry partners, provincial and federal governments to see Jasper achieve its share of the province's vision for tourism expenditures of 1.3 billion by 2035. The third, identify opportunities to resource and implement programs that promote resilient rebuilding efforts while increasing the supply of permanent housing. Next, we have ensuring recovery planning and implementation is driven by local needs and empowers residents and businesses to meaningfully participate in rebuilding their community. Next, ensure that recovery and rebuilding projects uphold Jasper's unique small mountain community character and preserve its distinctive built heritage. And finally, leverage the opportunity to review systems and practices, making bold improvements and lasting advancements. So with these proposed priorities, we would take these to the Recovery Advisory Committee, we would get their feedback, and then we would return to council based on that feedback with a list of final priorities for your review and potential approval. I am happy to answer any questions you might have.
Council, any questions or thoughts to share? Councillor Kelleher, MP.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Wexford, for you to direct our business recovery. Would that be under community health? Like, where do you see that fitting as a priority?
I would see that falling under ensure recovery planning and implementation is driven by local needs and empowers residents and businesses to meaningfully participate in rebuilding their community.
Thank you for that.
Mayor Ireland.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Waxer. I am in a position where I'd be happy to make the motion now in line with the recommendation. I will hold off for a moment if other councillors are interested. My view of it was that the recommendations are solid. I think that the recommendation to go to the Recovery Advisory Committee is appropriate. And the more council sort of dives into details now, the more we might influence the reception and the attitudes of the advisory committee. And I would prefer just to see them take the first shot at it and then come back to council. Council will have another opportunity to review this, but I think to some extent we put our thumb on the scale if we go into detail right now. So I think the recommendation is very solid. The individual recommendations for the strategic plan, I think, are solid and deserve to be reviewed by the Recovery Advisory Committee. So on that basis, subject to other questions that councillors might have for Director Fark, I would be prepared to make the recommendation in line with the wording on today's agenda.
Okay, we're ready for your recommendation then, please.
All right, I forgot to have two devices ready today, so I either get to see all of my colleagues or I get to see my agenda. So I will make the motion as recommended.
Any debate? All in favor? Motion carried unanimous. We now move to 7.2, Parcel H1 Roadway meeting.
Morning, Council. Can everyone hear me? Perfect. Council members, we are here today to present a recommendation regarding the naming of a new roadway for Parcel HI, which is essential for the timely development of the interim housing units for displaced Jasper residents. Administration recommends that Council approve the name Fireweed Avenue for this roadway and initiate the required legislative steps for implementation. As part of the recovery efforts following the Jasper wildfire complex, the municipality of Jasper and Parks Canada have been working through the Jasper Recovery Coordination Center to support residents. Critical aspect of this recovery is the arrival of 320 interim housing units by the end of February 2025 to provide housing for the displaced residents. To ensure these units can be occupied, civic addressing must be assigned to facilitate utility coordination and to allow tenants to obtain tenant insurance. Parcel HI has been designated as a roadway to serve one of the interim housing sites in question, but it requires an official name in order for addressing to be provided. Naming the roadway promptly is crucial to avoid delays in setting up utilities and allowing residents to move into these facilities. Administration is proposing the name Fireweed Avenue to align with Jasper's existing naming conventions and to honor fireweed, a native plant known for its role in post-wildfire regrowth. The name symbolizes the community's resilience and recovery, making it a meaningful and fitting choice for this roadway. Some alternative options for your consideration may to be, number one, choose a different name for the roadway. Number two, conduct public engagement before making this decision. This option may cause some pretty significant delays, which would affect people's ability to move into the interim housing units. And then option number three would be to take no further action, which would also prevent a rather timely delay in these interim housing units, which are greatly needed. Given the urgency of the situation and the importance of supporting displaced residents, we recommend proceeding with the name Fireweed Avenue to enable essential services and housing readiness. The name reflects our community's strength and commitment to rebuilding after the wildfire. Thank you, and I welcome any questions.
Open the floor for questions. Looks like Councillor Demoda is ready.
I do. Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor Waxer, through you. I have a tough question, and I'm just trying to make it as light as possible. What process did you go through to come up with the name Fireweed?
I'll answer that one through you, Deputy Mayor Waxer, to Councillor Demoda.
That's fine.
It was a small group, two of us here and one other person, and we came up with a name.
Councillor,
This comes back next week for approval, so, you know, it's the first time the community is hearing of it. So it will be good that it's online and people can watch today's proceedings of our meeting, and it'll be interesting to see if our members of our community agree with the name, and I'm sure we'll have some input from our public. And then I think with that info, we can move forward next week.
Councillor Demoda.
Yeah, and in all honesty, I wasn't ready for any name for a laneway to come up. The last time we went through a naming process in my election was when we named Commemoration Park, and that went through a little bit of public scrutiny, and we had a bunch of names come forward. That did take quite a little bit of time. I understand the urgency to get this done. I'm just going to publicly say that I'm not a big fan of the name, and I'm really sorry about that. I did have another councillor contact me and share the same sentiment. They're not here to discuss that, but I think that we could still move forward with this and not prescribe a name today to council unless somebody else wants to do that. I'm not ready to make a motion in that direction. I do appreciate the thought behind it and the work that it took to come forward here today. We have to get it done. At the same time, there's probably a better process, I think, for us collectively. Not sure what that is.
Councillor Wilson.
I think that option is here today, and you know, if there's other, there are alternatives, but in my opinion, I do support the name. I like the fact that it kind of aligns with how our avenues are named, and I do feel it has a nice, well, a good significance to the area that it's servicing. And I appreciate how quick this has come, because, you know, we are trying to get housing in, and yeah, I really wouldn't want like a whole naming process to unfold in front of us when what we are trying to deal with is getting people in homes. And I feel it's a great name for the area that we're being questioned.
Councillor Kelleher.
I agree with Councillor Wilson that I don't want the process delayed, and that's why it's great that it has a week in the community. And I think if people are upset by the name, they will tell us. And if we hear from nobody, then, you know what I mean? So if people don't like the name or don't like the process we're using, then I encourage everybody to call us or contact their councillors.
Councillor Demota.
Well, it looks like the mayor has his hand up.
Oh,
So I just
okay,
wanted
I was
to-
watching
That's
the
fine.
hand, but I
Yeah,
didn't
there's a
see
little
it.
hand up there.
Okay, oh. Okay, I still don't see it, but that's okay. Mayor Ireland.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Waxer. Thank you, Councillor Demota. I was contemplating putting my hand up, but I hadn't yet. But now that I have been put to it, I'm happy to respond. Interim housing is the most critical matter that we are dealing with right now. If there is any chance that not having a proper name for fire response or any other purpose in any way impedes that, then I think that we should move forward, and we can consider this, if necessary, an interim name. And if the community wants a different process, or if council thinks there could be a different process, we have changed the names of streets previously. We've done it with Bonhomme, for example. It's not an impossible task, and we can go through a fulsome process later. But if there is a need to have a name now so that residents in interim housing have the protection of having a known address, say for fire response, then I am prepared to take this. I do appreciate that it's connected both with the event and the need for interim housing, and it follows the protocol that has been in place in Jasper since way before we became a municipality. That is, naming streets after either the flora or the mountain names that surround us. It doesn't quite follow the convention of A at the north end of town, and we go down to Willow at the south end, and so it starts with an F rather than something lower in the alphabet. But I researched to see if there might be a Latin name for fireweed that began with an A, and I couldn't find anything. But it's generally appropriate. This is an urgent situation. If there's a need to have a name for a street for the people who are going to live there, I am prepared to accept the recommendation. It just moves forward to council, I think, for determination. If we hear from the public, we can change our minds next week. And even if we hear from the public late, we can always do another process. But let's not put any risk on people in interim housing if it's simply over a name. So I appreciate the recommendation. I appreciate the work of staff to come up with a name that is generally fitting and reflective of the circumstances. And so I will support the recommendation.
Councillor Demota.
It's nice to hear the mayor say that. And I was having a little bit of a brain jam there earlier, and I was gonna ask if this was Mr. Pollock's first time presenting to us, and I didn't mean to put you on the spot that heavily. One of the comments that came forward after this being on the agenda was that the word fire itself might be a little triggering to some, and after I contemplated that, that's one of the reasons why I didn't really want to support it. I understand the concept behind everything else, and it does make sense. I also did look for some flora that started with A that might be to our local area, but I failed to do so. But so I understand the process. However, I'm not a big fan itself, just because it just does connection. At one point, I want to find an opportunity to honor Morgan Kitchen at one point, and that's not appropriate either. But I want to keep that on the radar so that, we have an appropriate time and an appropriate place to do that. Maybe this isn't significant enough. However, it's one of those things now, especially for interim housing, people coming back or people moving. I'm trying to keep it in my mind as least traumatic as possible. That's all I'm gonna say.
And I might just take a moment to make a comment that was raised to me by a resident, and that they're not so much necessarily the street, but they liked the idea of bookending the town of Cabin Creek at the west end and Cottonwood Creek neighborhoods at the other end. So that doesn't necessarily relate to the street, but I thought it would raise that concept. Is there a councillor willing to make the motion? Councillor Keller-Hurrenby.
The committee recommend council approve the name Fireweed Avenue for the roadway to parcel HI, and that committee direct administration to initiate the required legislation steps to implement the road name.
Any debate? I'll call the question.
I do have a little.
Sorry.
Well, it's just because we're initiating two things at the same time, and I don't want to take up too much time on this because it's important to move it forward. But if we're directing administration to initiate the required legislative steps without approving the name first, it's kind of like if we get to council, we're pretty much rubber stamping it, right?
Correct.
Through you, Deputy Mayor Waxer, to Councillor Demota. The urgency piece is important in that we need a name, we need your blessing for a name so that we can have the addresses, so folks can arrive and have an address, get insurance, but also it will help with utility connections. When we have a name that we can use, then we're going to immediately follow up with a bylaw to officially name the avenue. So that will be the process, first reading, second reading, third reading, and it will be back to you. But in the interim, as the mayor said, we need a name so that it can function as a home for folks.
Good enough for me. I'm not gonna be a stick in the butt on this one. Thank you.
Can I call the question then? Okay, all in favor? Motion carried. Moving right along to 7.3, the 2024 property tax relief measures. Thank you, Director Sanders and Mr. Pollock. Mr. Malinchuk, are we speaking to this one? Thank you.
Good morning, Deputy Mayor and Council. Just to start off with the background to start the conversation today. As you all know, 2024 wildfire resulted in the loss of approximately 30% of the structures in the municipality, including over 800 housing units, leading to a huge property tax assessment, approximately $283 million. The community was also evacuated for nearly an entire month from July 22nd to August 16th, further impacting municipal revenues. In response to these financial pressures, the municipality and council itself went to, on September 13th, formally requested from the province financial support to relieve some of the tax implications and revenue, to stabilize the revenue, basically. So we had a good news situation happen on February 6th, as most already know, a grant of $1,908,000, reflecting a 90-10% contribution split between the province and the municipality of Jasper. to provide property tax relief for all the properties during the evacuation period and for the damaged and destroyed properties from July to December of 2024. Forgiveness of $1,114,555 in 2024 education property taxes for evacuated, damaged, and destroyed properties, and up to $3,051,000, reflecting also a 90 to 10% contribution between the province and Jasper to offset additional municipal revenue losses for 2024. So very good news story that we're really receiving this assistance. For this situation, the municipality for some of this must do 10% contribution. And administration's coming to committee today requesting that this 10% for the tax stabilization portion of what we're discussing today be covered by the financial stabilization reserve. This will allow the municipality to meet the provincial funding requirements for the 2024 tax relief program without affecting service levels or increasing the tax burden to the remaining property owners. This approach ensures that eligible property owners receive the full tax benefit. There are alternative approaches. For instance, looking for other funding sources, such as reallocating funds from operating budgets to other, or to reallocate from other reserves. However, this could also impact the other municipal service levels, basically in what the municipality has decided to provide going forward. Looking at all of this, to give a little bit of a sequence of property tax assessment and relief implications. Early April, the affected taxpayers will receive their 2025 property tax assessment notice, which will reflect the property value as of December 31st, 2024. As you know, many of those are destroyed, damaged. So one thing that's very important for leaseholders to remember is that there is still an assessment that will be tied to the land. So there will still be an assessed value provided to each property owner, even if their property was destroyed. This means that there's also an amount that will be taxed for the portion of the land that is assessed. So very important for patrons, residents to know going forward. And then the other step is that before June 15th of this year, 2025, property tax notices will be sent out. And this will show the tax relief measures for the 2024 tax year. So basically it would be applied as a credit towards the 2025 tax bill. And it may even carry forward into other years, given that if you're only paying taxes on your land this year, but you're receiving a tax credit in 2024 for the property that you lost for 6 months, it may carry forward another year. Depends on how it all equates within your situation. So some might just see a credit that would reduce their taxes for the 2025 year. So all this being said, the total municipal contribution for the tax relief was stated in this report as being $220,000 from the financial stabilization reserve as requested for council to decide on, because council does need to decide any kind of contribution made from reserves. Since then, we've done some more accurate calculations and have had the posting run through our financial system to give us an exact number. And that number is sitting at $208,283. So just under that 220 that we have in the report. We were expecting it to go up to the 220, but the exact number is that. Very thankful to my staff to put that into the system and get that exact number for us today. And just to reiterate, the recommendation is that committee recommend council approve funding the required 10% municipal contribution towards tax relief for the 2024 year from the financial stabilization reserve. Thank you.
Questions for Director Malinchuk? Councillor Keller.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Waxer, to use Director Nolanchuk. Do we have adequate funding in the stabilization fund to cover this?
Deputy Mayor through to Councillor Keller. MP, yes, there is adequate funding there at the moment. The December 31st, 2024 balance that is ending is 1.825 million. So at the moment, there is enough. This is a smaller amount of what we might be looking at going forward with all the other calculations of the recovery process. So it is a smaller amount at this point. Administration obviously will be keeping track of all of this, the 10%, and we will be bringing forward to council later other decisions on how to recover or deal with the funds that we're pulling from the reserves to figure out the situation that we're in at this moment. It's just the most immediate answer to be able to support every resident in the situation for the 2025 years, so that it's something that's being solidified and clarified right now, because it's definitely been a question by a lot of residents at this moment.
Thank you for that, Director Nolanchuk.
Councillor Demoda.
I was gonna ask a similar question, but I think I got the answer, and I was just, if we were gonna dip in for the same amount for consecutive years, how long could we go? Ultimately, it would be great if we've got more support. I'm very grateful for what we've been getting from the province since day one. From financial supports, they've been very supportive and very quick to answer that way. Not my place to say this, but I was grateful to receive that letter that's in the agenda from our Minister of Municipal Affairs, who I know that's been working very diligently to get us the extra support, and having the education fund lifted for this year and hopefully continuous years is really helpful right now. Thank you.
Other question? Mayor Ireland.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Waxer. Through you to Director Malinchuk, I don't have a question, but I want to take this opportunity to extend deep appreciation for getting this before council so quickly. It is an absolute credit to our staff that they were prepared. We didn't have these numbers until February 6th. Our agenda came out the very next day, February 7th. Here we are, February 11th, dealing with the matter. Our staff was on top of this. They did exceptional work to get this recommendation to us in a turnaround time of, it appears to me to be 1 day. That shows that they are anticipating the needs of the community, they're anticipating the needs of council, and they're able to respond in exemplary fashion. I think it's absolutely amazing that the day after we got the notice from the province, and I agree with Councillor Demoda that we are grateful for the support from the province, but in a day's time, our staff was able to turn this around and get it on an agenda so that council could review it today. I am supportive of the recommendation, but I just want to take the opportunity to extend deepest credit to staff for getting it to us so quickly.
Thank you for that. Is there any other thoughts? Is there a council willing to make this motion? Councillor Keller, her MP.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Wexler. The committee recommend council approve funding the required 10% of municipal contribution towards the tax relief for the 2024 year from the Financial Stabilization Reserve.
Any debate? I'll call the question then. All those in favor? Approved unanimously. We move on then to the motion action list. Director Nadon, are you prepared to speak to that?
I can. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Waxer. We are at the first committee of the whole of the month of February, so you'll see there are a few items on there that still they're slated for February, so we still have a chance to come back in 2 weeks. So we are not asking for any changes to the document that's currently shown on the agenda. So if you would accept it for information, I think might be an appropriate motion.
If there's no questions, is there a councillor willing to make that motion? Councillor Wilson. If there's-
Yeah, I make the motion.
Okay, thank you. And then I'll call the question. All those in favor? Okay. Moving on then to upcoming meetings and I'll wait for someone's hand to speak to that. Seeing none. Move on to upcoming events. I think the important one is to remember that the Jasper Recreation Facilities grand reopening is January 9th or February 19th at 5 p.m. Is there anything missing from the list? Okay, then. Oh, sorry.
Nothing missing from the list. One of the other hats that I get to wear is that I sit on the Skull Canadian Rockies board. And the group represents hospitality and tourism operators in the valley. It's an international club. But shortly after our wildfire, a fundraising effort took place within the group, and it went across Canada, North America, and internationally. And there was some fundraising done through auctions that regard. And we're having our monthly meeting here in Jasper this Wednesday. And the group within our club that did the fundraising will be presenting a nice big fat check to the Jasper Community Team Society for the Caring Community Fund through that to help people in our community. And I think it's really great. It's a sizable check, nothing super monstrous by any means. However, I think it'll be very helpful for people in the community. And I'm just very proud that a bunch of people within our area and across the country really chipped in to help out for this. So it was very heartwarming, and I look forward to the check presentation on Wednesday. Thank you.
That's wonderful news, and I'm sure will be put to good use. If there's no other upcoming events, is there a councillor willing to make the motion that we adjourn? Councillor Keller, her MP. All in favor? Motion carried. Must be a record. 10 after 10. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a good day.